Great. Okay, and now for our program tonight. We are pleased to have Natalie Dalton return to present. She is a senior architecture consultant of Bespoke Careers. Please check out their website. They have job listings around the globe. I do look commonly just check it out and see what's up in Melbourne and London and all these amazing places. Visit Bespoke. Also, they have very helpful salary data. So if you're ever curious about the salaries here in Los Angeles versus London, check it out. It's very interesting. Anyway, now I'd just like to present Natalie Dalton. Welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. Like Sarah said, I'm a senior architecture consultant at Bespoke Careers. And what's great about Bespoke Careers is we're a boutique recruitment agency, so strictly focused on architecture and design, which makes my job super exciting, connecting job seekers who are architects and designers such as yourselves with local employers who can be big firms, small firms, and everything in between. And what I really like about Bespoke Careers is that our focus is solely limited on design, and our team is made up of consultants and leaders who are ex-industry. So architects themselves, interior designers, landscape designers, people who really understand and speak the language of architecture and design and bring that specialized approach to making those connections. And as Sarah said, we also have the help and reach of our global network. We have offices in LA, New York, Sydney, Melbourne, and our headquarters in London. So really great web that stretches around the world for making, your next career move. And prior to joining Bespoke Careers, I worked for the LA chapter of the AIA, as well as ongoing work with the Westside Urban Forum. So I love this community, and it's an honor to be a part of the event tonight. As I go along, feel free to drop any questions that you may have in the chat. We'll also do a Q&A at the end of the call. And there will even be a couple interactive polling options that will pop up on your LinkedIn screen as we go along. And without further ado, there should be a little picture. Let's see, the next slide. That's me. You can check out our job board at bespokecareers.com. As Sarah mentioned, I'll also have a recap of my contact details at the end if you want to connect on LinkedIn, since that's what we're going to be delving into tonight. Let's see. So before I jump into all things LinkedIn, I want to talk about the architecture design industry, what's happening right now. I brought up this slide in my last chat with AWA plus D because women are, and let me make sure I can see everybody here. This headline, right? 61% of women are planning a major career change post-pandemic. I think that there's a lot of research and information and news happening right now coming out about how women have been affected by COVID-19. And it's an important lens at which I view the job market and the future of this industry. So I just like that context of what's going on. There's a lot of moving and shaking, and generally we're seeing a little bit of a shift in the market to be more employee centric as things sort of shift out or shake out. And I'd say, that said, the new normal varies a lot between firms and cities, and it's very different what we hear from our global offices, what's going on in Los Angeles versus what's happening in New York or Australia. But it's important to recognize that, women are in a unique position to move forward from this. And, COVID has presented new professional opportunities for men and women alike in the long term. And the question that we're all sort of mulling around is, how does that play out? How does that play out for individuals and firms? And how do we get seen and considered for new opportunities? In a past chat with AWA plus D, I covered how to do that with resumes and portfolios and best tips for your cover letters. But today is all about LinkedIn. And even though for some it's an afterthought, for most people, LinkedIn is actually your business card on the internet. So we can do a quick poll here to see what do you use LinkedIn for primarily. You could, answer all of these, but if you could make a selection on what you use LinkedIn for, that would be great context to get started. I'm going to choose networking. I don't know if you can also see my poll as the screen is shared, or you only see your own. Everyone weighing in. Give it a second.
I think we can wait one more. We'll get closer to 11 here.
Great.
People are thinking about it. Okay.
See how that.
All right. I think I'll end it now. It looks like we got everybody, and I will share the results.
Cool. Great. So I think that's a good mix, right? LinkedIn can be and should be used for multiple things. And I think that the great part about LinkedIn is that it gives you the ability to showcase your profile, your expertise, make recommendations, make connections. And not only is it sort of one of the first things that pop up when someone searches for you or searches LinkedIn for an architectural designer or an architect, but it's also an opportunity to demonstrate your own professional credibility and highlight your achievements. So the next question, quickly pulling you here, keeping you all engaged, is how often are you on LinkedIn? And I am for sure a daily user. So you can go ahead and weigh in again. Nice. Great. So I think that's an interesting mix as well, right? It's about 50% sometimes and then 50% rarely. And that's sort of typical because a lot of people see LinkedIn as a platform for those who are actively job seeking. But I hope that through this conversation, we can kind of talk about other ways that LinkedIn can be useful for you as a person who's not job seeking and might not ever be job seeking. Even for business owners and people who are running their own thing. So even if you choose not to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn or any time at all, I am a firm believer that it's still worth taking 30 minutes or so to set up your portfolio or your profile on LinkedIn and complete it. It doesn't need weekly or even interaction, but it is helpful to keep things up to date and to check in once in a while, and obviously update with any new or big accomplishments. So that could be whether you get a new job or you become an active job seeker and you want to let people know you're open to opportunities, or maybe you got a big promotion or made a move, totally independent of LinkedIn, but might be helpful to update your network. So the main difference between LinkedIn and other social media platforms is that it's a B2B platform, so business to business for professionals. And I do believe that it can be equally useful for employers and employees when utilized correctly. What does, optimization and utilized correctly mean? Well, there's a few different concentrations that I'll talk about tonight. These 5, the algorithm, consistency, research, network, and reaching out, are sort of how I've divvied up how I think LinkedIn can better work for you. The first one, sort of the true meat of this presentation, which is talking a little bit more about the algorithm itself and sort of how LinkedIn operates. Specific to the LinkedIn algorithm, there's all these different details, and we'll actually open up my own LinkedIn and poke around in there to show you a little bit behind the scenes. But basically, across social media and the internet, the currency of reach or impact in the digital world is fueled by the quality of the data that you provide. So LinkedIn wants your information. So when you give it what it wants, it will amplify your messaging and your reach into different communities and ability to network. So most of it is pretty straightforward. It's the same type of information you give other social media platforms, like a profile image or a bio. But obviously, with a professional spin on things, there's a few more components that are quite specific, like your industry. And there's been a lot of evolution in that with LinkedIn. It used to be just architecture and design, and now it can be much more specific to interior design or UX design or architectural design. Location has also changed a lot over the years. I don't know if anyone remembers, it used to be like greater Los Angeles was what most people in LA had as their location. And now that's really gotten more precise. So you can differentiate between you living in Venice versus downtown LA, or Pomona. So a lot of those things have gotten a little bit more evolved, let's say, in terms of their specifics. And when you manage to fill out all of these different components on your LinkedIn, ideally you get to what LinkedIn and I refer to as an all-star profile. And what's great about an all-star profile, and again, I just wanted to pull up my own just to like show you all behind the scenes where it says, this is kind of where all-star lives on your profile. Likely you might not be there because it does want a fair share of information. It's always prompting for more. But basically, once you're at an all-star profile, those profiles are 40 times more likely to receive job opportunities and direct messages from people who are interested in either proposing something, selling something, connecting, etc. But I think 40 times more likely is a really, really high number. And it kind of gives the idea of why providing that information is so important and how it could be beneficial to you. I think, visible here in my own profile, the great thing about LinkedIn, again, different from other social media platforms, is that it does allow you to have an online personal brand. You can sort of edit your headline photo, you can edit your profile photo, you can write your about, and really put forward who you are as a designer with just a few little tweaks of what you're putting out there. It's very different from, like a Facebook where there's, although Facebook does have a headline. I guess I compare it to like the old school days of a MySpace where you could have like all of the things that were you online, I think they're here to create a concise branded version of who you are. And what's crazy is that 93% of recruiters use LinkedIn to research and recruit candidates. So that's almost all recruiters are looking on LinkedIn to find talent. At Bespoke Careers, again, we have a large global network and an internal database. So I don't have my LinkedIn recruiter license active right now on this page, but my colleagues all use it, and we sort of take turns just because we have a large office and, again, a large database. So when someone puts your name and your firm name into a search engine like Google, your LinkedIn is one of the first results. And for that reason, it's important to treat your LinkedIn profile similar to how you would create your own resume or CV to ensure that it's putting you forward in the best possible light. And going back to this slide here, and moving through the different pieces that make your profile complete, the first one is your profile picture and a banner image. I used a super basic banner image from the free photo websites, which can be Pexels, kind of like Pixels, but with 2 E's, and Unsplash, which have pretty much unlimited free images that you can download and use for something like this. You can have a headline, which is this here that lives under your name. It's also what follows you around on the internet. So you can see here, and people you may know on my sidebar, you know, this person has pretty straightforward recap of their current role, director of interior design and architecture at Where Malcolm, whereas Henry, who I know, is a top 2020 LinkedIn recruiter, ranked top 10% LinkedIn recruiter globally. That's awesome. So you can use your headline to be a little more creative or just really straightforward, depending on whether you're job seeking or trying to drum up new business. This is an interesting piece that is unique to LinkedIn in that it follows you wherever you go. So I'm obviously not job seeking, so I'm just giving a quick summary of who I am. I'm an architecture consultant, and I'm also a creative leader and strategist. Sometimes I'm a storyteller. You know, you can really edit that and change it however you see fit. Again, this is your location. The industry that I mentioned elsewhere is probably somewhere here when you actually go into editing. Yeah, so when you click the little pencil icon on your own LinkedIn page, you can get into some of the edits. You can select your pronouns, you can update your current position, education, all those basics. And then I picked the industry of design just because I am more broadly related to design in my current role. But like I said, you could select something more specific, such as architecture, which is in here somewhere. You can also put in contact info to refer others to your personal website, for example. You could put that here in your contact details, or that could be something that you put in your headline if you want to refer people out to a different website. I mentioned earlier, this is your summary statement or your about. I have mine optimized to be just 3 lines because after that, it sort of creates like a read more prompt, and it won't show you the full bulk of the text. But it's a great place to have your about statement. It could be something about you and your current firm. It could be something about what you're looking for in your next role. It's definitely a space to create a call to action for those who are coming onto your page and wanting to learn more about you. LinkedIn for an all-star profile also really wants to get as much of your experience captured here, your work experience. You have to have at least a current employer and at least 2 previous for all-star profiles. I have all of my, let's say, postgraduate experience. I don't have unrelated jobs. So even though I've worked in a restaurant in college or a bar over a summer, you know, I don't have that on my LinkedIn because I won't be actively seeking service industry jobs through LinkedIn. So that's something to also think about in terms of your curation. These titles themselves, senior consultant, program director, these are all searchable components of your profile that a recruiter can scan for. So if I wanted to find someone who's been a job captain and worked for a certain employer, that's going to scan your profile for that information. So making sure that you have your roles accurately described and the companies and all of that good information there is great. Then at the bottom, there is skills and endorsements. This is another component of LinkedIn that has changed quite a lot over the years. It used to be like it would just kind of draw from your CV and take whatever it saw. So some of mine I feel like are a little outdated since I've been on LinkedIn since I graduated. You can also add a new skill or write in your own and sort of build that up. Like obviously for an architect or designer, having Revit or project management or site planning would be a lot more effective in terms of searchable terms than, mine right now, which say like public speaking and event planning. These skills also live sometimes in the jobs posted to LinkedIn. And so there's a component of LinkedIn that's looking for the match between the skills you currently have and the skills that a job seeker is looking for. So that's something to also, we'll come back to that when we take a peek at some of the jobs posted on LinkedIn. Obviously, if you have education that you want to highlight, I have my main university experience. I also have certificate program that I've been pursuing and study abroad. These are networks in and of themselves that we'll talk about again a little bit later. You can click through to a lot of these companies or organizations and follow them and sort of connect with fellow alum. And I'll click through and show that as well. And then the last thing for that all-star profile is your connections. So once you hit 500 connections, which can feel like so many, you get, again, another boost of your reach on LinkedIn. So the more you're networking, the more your network values your content, and the more LinkedIn is going to amplify that, which is awesome. And specific to, this is very personal or individual, but I think this is a great time to talk quickly about the difference between a personal page and a business page. There's a lot of benefits to having your business on LinkedIn, but it should not be the same as a personal page, just because there's a lot of different data available there. So let's see, like something like Condé Nast. There is, when you create a business page, it's going to be laid out a little bit differently. You can see there's still a headline and a logo rather than a professional photo. It would look strange if you had just an architect's face for your firm image. I think that it's important to have your logo here, unless you're a single sole proprietor and you want to highlight who you are as a person. On a company page, you're going to have the content separated out a little bit differently. So it acts a little bit more like a website. So you have the about statement, which is right here, but it's something that you can click on to get a little bit more information. You've got the overview, the website, company size, out of 201 to 500 employees, 142 are on LinkedIn. That's pretty interesting. Whether it's privately held, the different locations. You can go to posts, which is anything that they're creating themselves. And you can also click on jobs if they are they'll later attach to the business profile. And you can check out people. So people who work for a firm that you are researching. And again, we'll delve into this a little bit more, but it gives a really good overview for us as people utilizing the platform. And then for that business, not only can they look at, who on their team is on LinkedIn, how much are they engaging, there's a lot of back end information that they can see about the people who are following them. So if you're an architecture business, that's great to know, are most of the people following your business junior designers who are fresh out of school? Are they potential clients? Are they located where your business is? Or are they located where you went to a conference and spoke about architecture and design? There's a lot of insights that can happen on the back end of a company page. But again, it should be a company page and not a personal page, because there's different sort of malleability depending on how that is categorized. And those live in different places here too. Like you could look up architect in the LinkedIn search bar, and it's going to give you a whole different bunch of categories. So you could look up architect jobs, You could look up people who are architects. You could look up someone who's providing architectural services, companies, groups, courses. Like this is major, and you could really hone it down to get more specific. But just as an example, when I do architect, like I said, and then I search, let's say, people. And again, this is something that anyone can do. I don't have my LinkedIn Recruiter license on right now or LinkedIn Premium, but when I type in architect, generally it's giving me 4 million results, which is wild. And that's just for people. But say I want to look for an architect who's in the Los Angeles metropolitan area. Then I get down to 42,000, which is still pretty interesting. I could search it even further to be only my first and second connections. So people that I know or people that I know. And whatever Juliana is doing right is putting her at the very top of the LinkedIn search. So out of 6,500 people, this is a really great optimized profile, which I think is great to just take a quick look at. I've not looked at this before, so hopefully it's optimized in the way that I was imagining, but she's got a great image, almost 500 connections, current company and alum there. Nice about, which again reiterates that she's an architect. So it's here in her headline, it's in her about summary. Doesn't have a lot of activity, which is fine. Again, you don't need to be on LinkedIn all the time, but what's interesting is that anything from the last 90 days is displayed here. So if you're promoting an event or you want to highlight something, it is a nice little top part of your profile that will populate with that content. And she's been at Walt Disney for 12 years. You can see here that they were promoted from design intern or consultant to architect after a year. Yeah, looks great. There's the job information here and whatever. Let's see. So she also put in her licenses and certificates that she's a licensed architect, also an NCARB member. And then you see here like skills and endorsements, like I said, are much more program specific, which is great. And she's also got a recommendation. I don't have any recommendations and I'm not a part of any LinkedIn groups, but those are also 2 other things that can be very useful for people. It's basically a way to give each other street cred on LinkedIn from working with one another. It could be a great way for a WA plus D to support one another as well. If there's certain people that you've volunteered with or worked with over the years and you know they're job seeking, these recommendations are a great way to just give your support and you know, explain how it is that you know each other or how you've worked together in the past. Yeah, I went on a little side tangent there. It's important to see how this network really can go in different directions, whether you're job seeking, whether you're looking for employees, or whether you're interested in drumming up new work. And you know, this may seem like a lot of work to you or to anyone, but the good news is only 51% of LinkedIn users have a fully completed profile. So it is an opportunity to really stand out. But it's interesting here that the algorithm has fed me somebody without a profile image. Sometimes that has to do with your own preferences in terms of like not letting strangers or second degree connections see who you are. But generally, I think it very much prefers people who do have a headline or sorry, a profile image available and posted. Like I said, it might be just because they have LinkedIn Premier and they might have restricted some of their visibility, which is totally fine. But usually it's going to bump up to the top people who have updated headlines, updated information, and who have, you know, fed the info. I think that one of the notes that my managing director brought up is that it's great to have a professional image as your profile. It doesn't need to be a headshot that you pay, a lot of money to do, but it is a small at a glance of who you are, and so you do want to make it as professional as you can. You can do that with an iPhone, or whatever smartphone image. But generally, I recommend having, nice picture of your face, or it could be a logo, um, and sometimes the lack of image just makes it less, we are humans. We like looking at humans. We like seeing their eyes and their face, and it's kind of hard to connect with the gray, outline of a person. So it could also look like maybe that person's not as strong with technology if they haven't updated some of those, easy to drag and drop components of their profile. So I think I talked about that. The second point I wanted to underscore is consistency. By that, I mean making sure all of the information on your profile checks out and matches your CV or website. This is, for me, one of the biggest red flags. If I get a CV that says that somebody's been at a company for 5 years, and then I check their LinkedIn and it shows that they were there, but then they left and then they came back, and that total they were only really there 3 years, that's weird. I don't even necessarily want to go down that path to find out the story of that person. And maybe that's not the best practice, but I just think that it can cause a question mark in people's mind about if you're hiding something or if you're not being completely transparent. So those dates and that information is super important. Other components of consistency is making sure that you have just one profile and one sort of name on LinkedIn. Sometimes, like I said, you maybe created something when you're fresh out of college, and then now 15 years later, you can't remember the login details or whatever. I think it's important, if someone were to search for you, and they should probably just find one LinkedIn page for you rather than an outdated one, which maybe doesn't have all the information, and then a new one. So if you can consolidate or pare down, and consistency in business page versus personal page. Basically, the whole point of that is to make your online presence as straightforward as possible. Like I said, if you've done a lot of work on creating a personal page or creating a company website, and you want to direct people there because it has much more of what you want to be sharing, that's great. Maybe drop it in your headline, but you still want to have LinkedIn optimized as sort of a landing page to push people to that point, should they click through to your LinkedIn first. So again, it could act as a funnel. It can act as your call to action. And for consistency, again, dates of the time that you're working at a company, your position or role, and how it's changed over time. The company itself, most of them are searchable to just edit. Let's see if I could go back to that and just show a little bit of how that works. Oops. So say you want to add in an experience, work experience. You can type in a title that's recognizable, that's like sort of pre-programmed. So architectural designer, senior architectural designer, architectural design manager. Let's say you're an architectural / software designer. It's not a technical LinkedIn title, meaning like it's not one of their designated categories, but you could still have that. But something to consider is it may be slightly less searchable. So if I were to put an architectural, I would do architectural designer / software designer. And then at least it can pick up this complete word and it can, or words, and it can pick up this complete words. Employment type, you can select whether it's full-time, part-time, self-employed, freelance, all that good stuff. Company name, like I said, most of them are plugged in here. So when I type in bespoke careers, I select my company, but again, it's kind of confusing. There's another one here, might be the same, might be someone else, but you can see how legit the clearly, clearly stated logo, name, the fact that it's a company and its industry versus no logo, all caps name, which is like the official business name, company, and staffing and recruiting. It's like, that looks way better. So I'll have to have someone consolidate the bespoke LinkedIn profiles after this. Your location, here we go. So you can see Los Angeles metropolitan area, city, county, Chile, East LA, a little bit of everything there. You want to make sure it's the accurate one. So I'd probably do Los Angeles County. You can do your dates. You can, as you add in a new experience, say you got a new job, you can end your previous one. You can end, multiple things that you have open, so to speak, on the dates of on your LinkedIn. You have the opportunity here to change your headline, that same, text that's going to follow you around the internet, industry, etc. One thing that I really like to have in, and you can also add a description of the company, your role, etc. Here, this is pretty open-ended with 2,000 characters. You can also attach media. So external documents, photos, sites, you can link to your website. I link to the document that Sarah mentioned, which is our 2021 salary guide, just because I think it's such a good resource. And sometimes it's hard to find when you're poking around the bespoke website. So like, I just have that LinkedIn right there. I know it's useful to people. In my description, kind of like to give a little blurb about the company, since I've worked for some very niche companies, and then give a little bit of a blurb about my specific role and my specific involvement. Again, all of this text is super searchable. So if you've been working on hospitality projects with leading hotel brands such as, X, Y, and Z, that should live here, because someone might be looking for you and have no idea, because they're not searching the text of your portfolio or the text of your CV. And so, and same goes, I like to include the organization description, because it's pretty niche, and there might be something that someone doesn't know about a company. If it's my own company, then I want them to know this is a woman-owned, small firm operating or focusing on single-family residential and small-scale commercial projects. That might lead to someone searching the internet for those super specific terms and finding you. You have here on this data is, and what you want the world to be finding you as online is ideal. And then the last two, achievements and responsibilities. Same as what I probably touched on in the CVs. It's great to highlight your accomplishments rather than list your responsibilities. I'll say that again, like, highlight your achievements rather than list your responsibilities. That could go, that could be a little open-ended when it comes to someone who's job seeking, because you still want to include searchable terms like I said, like project management or site planning or subcontractor coordination, that kind of thing. But if you could say, I oversaw or I was a project manager, or I oversaw project management for 5 hospitality projects in 1 year, or like 5 fast-tracked hospitality projects in 1 year, that says so much to me, so much more than I've worked on hospitality, right? So the more you can sort of quantify that experience and be precise about your involvement and sort of your wins, I love that. You love that. It probably makes you feel good. It probably makes other people feel good about how you can communicate and really convey what your expertise is. So let's see what else. The next little bit is network. Or wait, it's actually research. So the great part about LinkedIn, again, going back to one of my first points, is that you can use LinkedIn or the website in general to research a lot of different components. So whether it's a company, like we sort of poked around on with Condé Nast, it can also be prospective clients. You could be, let's say, like searching a developer, okay? Let's say Hudson Pacific Properties. You want to get into more developer driven, projects. I'm going to follow Hudson Pacific Properties. I'm going to take a peek at what they've been up to. And when you follow something like a developer, it's also going to say like pages other people recently viewed: Kilroy, Douglas Emmett, Hackman, big Los Angeles developers. I could follow all these guys. Lots of people are doing it as well. What's great is that you can go into their posts. Looks like they're super active on LinkedIn. They posted a week ago. They were developer of the year for this NAIOP. And you could also like get a sense of, do they have some big funding money coming down the pipeline? Do they have a really specific development focus? Who are the architects that they're working with? Oh, they're like, interested in mass timber office buildings. Cool. This is all super good information if you want to be going after project pursuits, putting together RFPs, just getting a little bit more insight into companies. And again, you can search straight through to jobs. Hudson Pacific has their recently posted jobs here. You can also create a job alert. And that could be super useful, again, even if you're doing business development. It's sort of like getting a sense, are they building their own in-house design team? Are they actively seeking marketing people? Or, just trying to figure out how you have that overlap with people you're looking up. I also think it's important to look up who you're going to be interviewing with. If you're job seeking and you know who the contact is, you can do it secretly if you don't want them to know that you've been looking on their profile. So like, let's say I search myself. I don't know if you can do that if I spelled my name wrong. If I look at me, I don't know if that will work. Say you search somebody like I don't know if this is like the hacker version, but so this is me, right? You could do open in a private window. And then that's going to pull up a page where you are not logged into LinkedIn. It usually has limited visibility of that person's imagination. You can see it like takes away my headline image. But it still gives a sense of like, what have I been commenting on? Where am I working? Who are my mutual connections? And so you should absolutely be researching the people that you're interviewing with, just so that you know who they are, what their background is, etc. You can look up recruiters, you can look up hiring managers. Again, that goes back to like a pretty basic search for, let me see, like AECOM. I mean, that's like the biggest firm ever. Maybe I'll choose someone more specific. Let's say like co-architects. If I go to co-architects, I go to their people.
Look up Elaine.
Yeah, right. Great. So it's already telling me like, these people, and yes, they're helpful. Oh, it's because it edited let's do no connections. And So we're in people, we're in co-architects, and then it's going to show me like all of these different people. And obviously I would either zoom through here and see if there's someone who says like, hiring manager, or I would do a little bit more Googling and figure out who that is and then, check them out. This could be something that you could essentially reach out to somebody with a super specific message. If you found them on here. And I think, all that said, no one wants to hear a sales pitch on LinkedIn, and like no one wants to get spammy messages in their inbox from, someone who's not paying attention to what you do or what your company is. I get messages all day that are like, hey, Natalie, like, do you want some architectural visualizations? No, I don't. But I would be interested if it was a firm that I had never heard of, even if it was just like to learn more about their work. I would love to connect with somebody who's another recruiter in architecture and design, because it's interesting to see what they're working on. So, make connections that will potentially lead to something later down the line, but don't ideally use it as like a spam opportunity. For a business, this is a great way to create your warm leads, to create connections with people. And that might lead to something later down the line. You don't need to come in with a super hard sell or cold call. It's just a way to show interest in what they're doing, show that mutuality between what you're looking for and what they do, and, even potentially weigh in on issues that they're facing or needs that they have by following along with their posts and seeing like, what are their needs. So I think, yeah, we talked a lot about that. Companies, again, great way to keep an eye out. There's lots of opportunities that pop up as you're going on, both passively and actively. And the last little bit is just about, growing and leveraging your connections. There's over 30 million companies and employees on LinkedIn, which is just absolutely massive. And our all digital era, it's a great way to continue to make those connections from the comfort of our own homes. LinkedIn is a super easy way to continue to build up your network, since we're not doing as much in-person stuff. And so your network can be, again, people you went to school with, alumni from your same university, usually kind of the biggest group of people that it prompts you to add as your network when you first join LinkedIn. It could be clients or specific contacts you've worked with, past employers, past managers, people that you know through AWA plus D or other extracurriculars. I think it's a great approach to add or connect with people who you saw or interacted with at an event, whether it was a speaker who really, connected with you, or you just like their messaging or what they were saying, being able to send them a message like, your headlining talk at Powerful this year was awesome. It inspired me to do more work in cultural and institutional typologies. Please, let's connect and stay in touch. Awesome. I mean, that's not weird. That's totally cool. And it shows somebody that you're paying attention and that you're interested. And again, along marketing person at a certain firm to just stay in the loop with the different type of content that they are putting out. And that last part is like, don't let all of those connections go to waste. Please do reach out. And, it might be once a year when you check in and you have a big update that you want to share with your LinkedIn network. But it is an opportunity to really come back to over and over again over the years, a vast network of professionals. And you can do that, like I said, in some of those more activity components of the profile. So like for this event, obviously I shared AWA plus D, talking about curious about LinkedIn, tagged AWA plus D, made a post that's easily shareable. I dropped in some hashtags. And, this content creation on LinkedIn is also somewhat underutilized. It is a great way to position yourself as an expert by publishing and sharing content. It's not like, Instagram where like you're in a content waterfall or like hurricane essentially at this at this point. Here it's a little bit more like curated and specific, and it's a great way to show your network. Like, this person's business development manager, they're reposting something that they just think is badass, right? Adaptive reuse. Yes, that's cool. And this is from a specific person who just basically posted a news article via Urbanize LA. I was going to try to see something a little bit more eye catchy. Los Angeles Tourist Board, they do a neat link, reposting news. Bespoke is big on posting a lot of content about architecture and design. You can see when people in your network comment or like other things on here. So there's a lot of ways to just sort of interact and, again, amplify what you have to say. And the last little bit, I want to make time for some questions. So the last little bit is the job board. Obviously, I would love for you to reach out to us at Bespoke Careers, but I know that there's a lot of opportunities in the world elsewhere. So you can use LinkedIn for some pretty great job searches. Just earlier when I typed in architect, it's saved as a search. It'll kind of like pull from, I'm interested in remote work. So it'll pull from past searches. It'll create recommendations based on my current profile in LinkedIn. And then you can go down, a very specific search for like architectural designer in Los Angeles, specific city. And then I'm looking at jobs. So within 24 miles, and 1,000 results is pretty good. I think that, that's you can create a job search here. You can update your experience level. You want probably entry level rather than an internship, or maybe it's associate level. Might slim things down a little bit. Yeah, that's a lot. So 142 results, but that's still a very large share of Los Angeles City design jobs. And like I said, when companies post these roles, and you apply, if you apply directly in LinkedIn, some of them don't have that as an option and they want you to reach out directly, which makes perfect sense too. On their back end of the job posting, they are given a suggestion of candidates who are meeting the majority of their qualifications. So sometimes that comes through and then setting up like really specific skills. But it might also be drawing from like this, like what do you do or what will you do, or your qualifications. And it'll be scanning that text and scanning your profile text and giving a prospective employer a suggestion of who is the most qualified, even if everybody has just done the same thing, send through their CV. It's already going to do a preliminary scan of the information that's out there. So you can set up job alerts, you can apply quickly. And I think that's just it. So this question is a quick poll about how likely you all are to engage more on LinkedIn, given a little bit of this insight. So we can pop that up, and I think I'm on it is probably my question or my answer, but feel free to ask any questions that are burning in your brain right now, weigh in on that poll, and yeah.
I have a